So YieldMax Group 1 announced their distributions today. So let's go over those. I also have a couple announcements for RoundHill as well. And let's also check out to see what MSTY did today. Hello my friends, this is Legend. So today we're going to see what MSTY, MSTR, and Bitcoin did today. And then we're also going to find out what those distributions were for the YieldMax ETFs. And that's in Group 1, which is the previous weekly pairs, as they did announce today. And then there is a couple for RoundHill that I have announcements for as well. So let's just go ahead and get a quick update on MSTY. And we're looking at the actual chart here, and these are the actual movements of those candles. And you can see we actually had a nice little move up today. Now I say that with a grain of salt because no more than I say we're moving up, it'll come back down, right? So I'm just taking it day by day. So today looks like we got a nice little move up. We opened at 12.05 and we end up going as high as 12.46 and closed at 12.34. A very nice move for the day. Now keep in mind, tomorrow, MSTY, along with the other single stock ETFs in Group 2, will also make their announcements tomorrow. And that will be the first time that we'll actually get all those ETFs with just 1 week of trading. As the last week, some had 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 4 weeks, right? But this week will be just a single week for each of those single ETFs. But looking at MSTY here, you can see we did move up. So we're still respecting that low down here for now at 11.43. But like I said, we've moved up and we closed at 12.34. Our next resistance line is around this 12.83. But if you look here, we might be forming a little bit of a resistance right here as well. And draw a little line right there. And we'll see if we can break through that. And if we can break through that, then we can hopefully move up and start testing this 12.83. But keep in mind, since MSTY is paying out weekly, that means that that distribution will be coming out of that price every week. So hopefully MSTY can try to recapture some of that distribution each week so that we don't keep coming down, right? But we all know what is actually pushing MSTY up or down. And that, of course, is MSTR. And you look right here, you can see MSTR. We had this line right here, and we are respecting it, right? It looks like it opened pretty much right there at that line, came down just a little bit, but then shot up, right? So today, we were as low as 291.52. as high as 305.99 and closed at 301.91. So that's a 1.79% move up on the day for MSTR, and MSTY with a 1.56% move up. A very nice correlation between the two. But as you can see, we might be running into a little bit of resistance right here as well. If you draw a line right there, but that is a pretty weak resistance, right? So I'm hoping to keep on moving right on through that and get back up here and start testing this 326 area for that resistance. And we can move on past it as well. I would love to see it to get back up here to the 365. But in order to do that, of course, we're going to need Bitcoin to move up. But we know it keeps going up and then dropping, goes up and then drops, right? So it's playing havoc on MSTR and therefore also creating headaches for us on MSTY. But as you can see on MSTR, we are lowering a little bit on that momentum here on the red side. That's good, right? That means we're hopefully moving up. We were flat yesterday and now we started turning up just a little bit. That's good, because if we can cross over that signal line, move over, and as soon as we cross over, we'll start getting some green momentum and hopefully get moving this thing on up. But we definitely want to try to keep it above that 279. I would love to keep it above that 294 right there. That would be awesome. But if it wants to come below that 294, Hopefully it stays above the 279 right here. But of course, we need Bitcoin to move. And let's look at Bitcoin right here. And as you can see, this is what I mean by shooting up and then falling right back down, right? That's what we did today. Today, we went as high as 114. Wow, right? But man, it didn't stay there very long before it just started coming back down again. We're sitting back at that 108.5, and it looks like we got as low as 107.5. It is still staying above our support line of this 105.9 and seems to be wanting to somewhat respect this 108.1. Now, I've got no problem about it consolidating a little bit, but then I need it to get off the pot and start moving, right? We need Bitcoin to start moving on up. The momentum off the red side here, you can see, is decreasing, but we're not getting much of a turn up on that MACD. It is still pointed down, so is the signal line. We need that MACD here to turn, cross over that signal line, and start moving this thing on up. That would be a great sign, and then that will push MSTR up and MSTY as well. But we do not want Bitcoin to take off, right? We do not want it to go from 108 to do a big green candle clear up here and hit 120, right? We don't want a candle like that, because what will happen is MSTR will move up along with Bitcoin, but MSTY cannot keep up, right? We get capped on that upside, and we only get to move up so much before we just can't move anymore. So therefore, we need Bitcoin to move and to make some good upward moves, but not to the point where it leaves MSTY. MSTR will keep up, but MSTY will not. But if it is some nice movements up in stair steps, that would be perfect for MSTY. And that's my opinion, as not financial advice. But that's what I would like to see Bitcoin do, so it can move MSTR up, and then we can start moving MSTY up, get MSTY back into that $15 range to start with, and start getting us even higher distributions, right? That's my thought, and that's my hopes for that. So now, let's go see what the distributions are going to be for the YieldMax and RoundHill ETFs. So this will be for Group 1. These are the previous weekly payers along with FEET and FIVE. Now, if you know, last week, FEET and FIVE did not pay out. So let's just see, did they pay out this week? It could have just been that it wasn't ready to actually change over last week. So we'll see if there is a payment for this week. And hopefully, it'll make up for last week as well. I have not looked at these, so I do not know. We're going to find out together. So let's go ahead and get started. And here we are. We're looking at the YieldMax ETFs, and this is for October the 21st in Group 1. Now keep in mind, Group 1 and Group 2, which is pretty much all of YieldMax ETFs, which was the previous weekly payers, and the single stock ETFs with YieldMax are all now paying weekly. So the X date for these will be October the 22nd, and these will be the previous weekly payers, which is in Group 1. The payout will be on Thursday, October 23rd. They used to be paying out on Friday, but they are now going to pay out on Thursday for those previous weekly ones. So let's start off with a great one right here with Chippy at 57 cents, and that's a 51.86% distribution rate. A very nice distribution for Chippy. I tell you, I think I'm going to have to look into this one. This one here has just been paying out pretty steadily. I'm going to have to see if that's going to be one of my next ones that I start buying into. So give me your thoughts. What do you think of Chippy? Or what do you think should be the next ones that we're looking into? But moving on, we have FEET, and looky, we did get paid for FEET this week, and it is stated as weekly. So my thought is just that it was not ready to be announced last week, probably just because of that early announcement, right? Being announced on Tuesday, it just might not have been ready. But it looks like it is now, and that's 35 cents. For a 58% distribution rate for FEET. Now the question is that 35 cents, is that for the week Or is that over the period since the last time it paid out? My thought is that's over the full period since it's paid out last. So I don't think this is probably for a single week, but I could be wrong. The only way we'll know is next week. That will definitely tell us if 35 cents is a weekly or is that for several weeks. And the same thing for 5E, right? Because it didn't show any payment last week. And this week it is 53 cents for a 74% distribution rate. But like I said, I think this is for multiple weeks of trading, but I could be wrong. GPTY for 45 cents at a 49% distribution rate. Very nice, right? LevG with 57 cents at an 80% distribution rate. What a nice distribution for that one. QDTY, 34 cents at a 39% distribution rate. RDTY, 41 cents at a 48% distribution rate. SDTY was 17 cents. SLTY was 62 cents. Now that's the ultra short, right? So that's the opposite of ULTY. And it's going to pay out 62 cents, and that's with that 83% distribution rate. Very nice. ULTY with, you guessed it, 9 cents, and that's a 90% distribution rate. Now what we need from ULTY is to recover that 9 cents, right? We need it to recover that weekly so that we can either keep it flat on the price, and if it can recover even more than the 9 cents, then we can start moving the price up. And ultimately, that's what we want for all of these ETFs, right? We want it to be able to recover that amount that it's paying out, so at least it can stay flat. Because for me, I'm not really looking for price appreciation, but I need that price to stay up so that it does not dwindle away in the price, which then affects how much in that distribution we're going to earn. Because as that price comes down, that distribution amount tends to want to follow that trend. Now we got YMAG with 21 cents. And that's a 73% distribution rate. Now that's off of the Mag 7. Very nice, right? That's a really good distribution for YMAG. And last but not least, we have YMAX with 15 cents. And that's a 65% distribution rate. Can't complain there. I'd prefer it to be in the 20s, but I'll take the 15 cents. So overall, some pretty good distributions here. But like I stated before, the distributions are nice, but we need that price to recapture that distribution. If not, it's just going to keep going down. Now, in a down market, it's just difficult, right? Because you're paying out that distribution and your underlying is dropping. Therefore, the YieldMax ETF or any of these ETFs, right? These high yield ETFs, will drop as well. And then it pays out a distribution and it comes out of that price, so therefore it drops even further. So there comes the rub, right? That's the catch here for these high yield ETFs. We need it to at least recapture that distribution, and that way, if it's only going down because the underlying is going down, then you have more of a chance to move it back up when the underlying moves back up. But if it's dropping due to the price and then dropping even further, right? Because after that distribution comes out, it drops even further and it just keeps stair-stepping down, then that's definitely not the position that we want to be in. And that is why I focus on my real price per share and always trying to average that price down. And that real price per share is basically the adjusted average price per share. Accounts for those distributions that I am earning and collecting and capturing, right? And then of course, if I do buy more shares and the current price is under my real price per share, then I'm only averaging down even further. So that becomes twofold in my case. I earn that distribution, which brings my real price per share down. And then if I can buy shares under my real price per share because the current stock is below my real price per share, then that too will bring down that average. And bringing down that average just means when it turns around, it's got less distance to move up before I become green, right? Because if I just buy it one time and I'm just holding and capturing those distributions, well, that's fine. But if the stock is dropping and the underlying is dropping, therefore the ETF is dropping, it means that it could take a little longer to recapture that capital. So for me, I also like to buy if I can buy those shares under my real price per share cost. So hopefully that makes sense, because my ultimate goal is to get these paid off. And to do so, I have to keep averaging down on that real price per share. So now let's just move right over into the RoundHill ETFs and let's see what they paid out. All right, so here is a couple from RoundHill right here. And this one is the YBTC, which is the cover call strategy for Bitcoin. And that's at 36 cents. And the YETH will be paying out 32 cents. That also has the X date of October 22nd, and it will pay out the 23rd, which is Thursday. And the last one I have for you is WPay. Now, WPay actually went X today, okay? And it will pay out tomorrow. And WPay is a RoundHill ETF as well. And it's going to pay out 73 cents for their distribution. A very nice distribution. This one here is another one that could be interesting to look into. Like I said, so throw in some comments. Let me know which ones do you think that are actually some good ETFs to get into, because I'd like to take a look at them and see how they're doing. So anyway, I wanted to just do some announcements on those distributions for the YieldMax and RoundHill ETFs, and also wanted to just see where MSTY sat. And as you see, MSTY is on that bottom half of that Bollinger Band, and hopefully we can move up and start breaking up to this MA20, and I would love to see it get on past and start moving back up to the top of that Bollinger Band. Would love to see that, wouldn't you? So I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button if you're not already, and make sure to hit the like button, as that does help the channel out. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, Legend out.